About a couple years ago, I picked up a compilation cart for the Mega Drive called Arcade Classics, which was a rather subpar collection of 3 classic Atari arcade games: Centipede, Pong or Ultra Pong, and Missile Command. To make a long story short, it's not a particularly good classic collection by any means, not just in regards to the meager offerings, but also due to the overall shoddy performance of the thing. The only way this collection could have been worse off is if it were released for the Gamecom. And, well, to my knowledge, that isn't a thing, and I don't have a Gamecom, so I wouldn't know anyways. But here's the next best thing: Arcade Classics for the Sega Game Gear. For better or worse, this is more or less a port of the same shoddy Genesis compilation containing the same 3 games. Let's check them out individually, shall we? Centipede, the classic Atari arcade shooter where you kill insects while clearing away mushrooms to eventually destroy the multi-section Centipede as it speeds its way down. Centipede originally used a trackball controller, and obviously the Sega Game Gear does not have such a controller. Here your turret controls a little slowly, but it's not too bad and it's still somewhat playable. Much like the Mega Drive version, Centipede plays slowly, almost unbearably so. Even in expert mode, the game runs no faster than a beginner's level would in any other version of Centipede. In sort of a segue, much like the Genesis version, Arcade Classic has the option of letting you play either the classic version or the Sega version of these classic games, with the Sega version theoretically enhancing the visuals somewhat. However, because of the Game Gear's small display, you barely notice whatever supposed enhancements were made to the visuals. Hell, even in this slightly larger emulated display, Centipede's cosmetic upgrades are barely noticeable. But if there was a positive to be had here, the background is still black and not that Mega Drive puke green that made things more difficult to see. Score 1 for the Game Gear, I guess. That's about all it's getting this round. Ultra Pong is just Pong with multiple variations that you could fiddle around with, including a hockey mode. First sight, a score of 15 points win. The AI in Ultra Pong is a bit of a bastard with the advantage of precise control, which is something you do not have with the D-pad, which can kill some of the fun factor with a paddle game that does not have paddle controllers to support. Ultra Pong in Sega Mode does little enhancements beyond minor sound upgrades. Meh. Missile Command, the classic city defense game where you command missiles to destroy other missiles and stuff. This is a bit of a change here from the original Missile Command arcade game in that rather than having 3 separate missile bases with their own stockpile of missiles, you only have 1 missile base with 3 stockpile of missiles at your disposal. Somewhat similar to the old Atari 2600 port of Missile Command. Controlling your targeting cursor is somewhat sluggish at times, but it's somewhat workable for the most part. No real complaints here actually. Playing Missile Command in Sega Mode only adds minor details to the graphics and changes the ship design slightly, but that's about it. Missile Command also plays somewhat slowly, which is odd. And that's about it for games really. Now each game has different settings. Centipede has different 2-player modes such as alternating team play and competitive modes. Presumably you need a Game Gear link or something to that extent to take advantage of this. There's different settings for Missile Command and Ultra Pong, such as skill settings and whatnots. But the one weakness that takes the package down a notch or 2, and it's the same thing on the Genesis version, it's the slowdown. Not necessarily an issue with Pong, but it's noticeable in Missile Command, and especially so in Centipede, where you really feel it running so slowly, you often wonder if there's a setting you missed to make the game go faster. And this slowdown happens whether you're playing in Classic Mode or Sega Mode. It's the one thing more than anything that really kills the compilation for me. And it's a shame because at the very least the games look, sound, and play as they should for the most part. Centipede looks like Centipede. Pong looks like Pong. Missile Command looks like Missile Command. And while the enhancements are somewhat minute in this Game Gear port, you squint your eyes a bit, you might notice them. Somewhat, kinda, sort of, I guess. As a whole, Arcade Classics for Game Gear is on par with its Genesis counterpart, which is not a good thing, believe it or not. I suppose for folks who want to emulate PAL format video games that ran at a snail's pace on the go, it's probably worth checking out. But for anyone looking for a quality compilation of arcade classics on the gear, I'd steer clear of this one unless you've really got nothing better to spend a couple bucks on. That's all I got. Goodbye.